Good morning. Today we are going to learn more about the central principle of literary criticism in Sanskrit, and we have already learned something of the main principle, and that is Resa theory. We have already learned, and even there also you have to find the main aspect of criticism, and that is Vyanjana. Vyanjana can be regarded as the central principle of literary criticism in Sanskrit. So, what is Vyanjana? You have already learned it in the previous classes, but still we are repeating it. Vyanjana is suggestion in poetry. And what is suggestion? Suggestion is impression through suppression according to Otto Jespersen. So, if you have to suggest something, you have to impress someone through a suppressed knowledge, that which is not spoken openly, but that which is just hinted at. And by doing that, the suggestion dominates, or there is that suggested element. And when there is that suggested element, then the beauty of the poem is enhanced. So, why should there be suppressed element in ordinary sentences? So, naturally, this is the question that comes. And the answer to that question is that it is to create a minimum degree of interest. So, if everything is explained in detail, then people will not have that much of interest to listen to the talk of others. But if there is the suppressed element in the ordinary sentences, then it creates a degree of interest, a certain amount of interest in the listeners. So it is that reason which makes it possible for people to use suppressed element even in ordinary sentences. Okay, here you have the suppressed element which we call as Vyanjana, and even then you find that the suggestion is that which really makes everything beautiful. So, the intellectual quest or search in Vyanjana leads to some conquest. This is how it is put in your text. So, in Sanskrit, there is the same idea expressed, that is, Gudam Sat Chamatkarokti, which means concealment lends charm. That which is not open, that which is hidden, always creates a curiosity in the mind of the beholder. And that secret thing that is hidden from us or that is concealed from others has got a certain charm, and we are anxious to know what it is, and that anxiety or that interest will reveal the concealed idea, and it is revealed to with all its beauty. So, Vyanjana is purely an artistic process through which every art to relive its life. So, it is it is said here that it is an artistic process. So, this artistic process is that which helps art to relive its life, because if there is no Vyanjana, there is no art as such. So it finds its fulfillment and consummation in artistic purposes, in artistic purpose. So not just in ordinary sentences or ordinary life, but also but more than that, in pure art. In order to make it art, in order to enhance the beauty of something said, then Vyanjana is used. This is why in poetry you have suggestion dominating, and suggestion in a poem enhances the beauty of the poem. Of course, we know the story of the poem, but when it is told by the poet through the use of Vyanjana, then the beauty of the already known story is enhanced by a lot of things that are added to it. And this is the manner in which art is created. And so we can say that Vyanjana is purely an artistic process through which every art is to relive its life. So not only that, it finds its fulfillment and consummation in artistic purpose. What is the artistic purpose of a poem? It is to create interest in the listeners and also to give happiness or aesthetic fulfillment to the readers or to the listeners. And so, this aspect is fulfilled when Vyanjana is used. So, the intellectual quest in Vyanjana leads to the conquest of the mind of the listeners or even the readers. And a person who is really intelligent goes in search of the suggested element that is there, and this in turn reveals a beauty to him, and that creates pleasure, aesthetic pleasure. So finally, it is rasa that is created. So that which is the terminology or the saying, Gudam Sat Chamatkarokti, which means concealment lends charm or concealment gives charm to the readers or to the people who are who are there as the aesthetic onlooker, and this interest of the person makes him search for the suggested element, what is suggested or what is hidden, and that is in a way revealed through the various words and various aspects, and then the real charm is revealed before him, and it gives pleasure, aesthetic pleasure to the person, and thus the real purpose of the art is fulfilled here. So, in a way, we can say that it is indeed something that gives much more than what is necessary, and in a way it is this artistic purpose that is behind the use of vyanjana. Then again you find that it is indeed there is an example. The example is that of a hamlet on the Ganges. Hamlet on the Ganges means river Ganga, and on the banks of the river there is a hamlet. The interpretation is a hut on the banks of the Ganges. So this is a simple statement. But the person who made this statement has some other purpose or prayojana in view. He goes a step further in suppression. So when he suggests a hamlet or a hut on the banks of river Ganga, we have to assume a lot. Means if you know what Ganga is a holy river, and on the banks of that river there is a hamlet. So the nearness to the holy river enhances the holiness of the hut also, or in a way by being on the banks of the river Ganga, the hut also attains holiness. So the speaker wishes to suggest that the hut is pure, it is holy because it is situated on the bank of the river Ganga. So the idea is that of the proximity to the river is left to be suggested. So we call this as Vyanjana. This is a perfect example of Vyanjana. It is a hamlet on the Ganges. Everything is suppressed. A hut on the banks of the river, holy river Ganga, and the term that is Ganges. And because it is nearer to the hut, nearer to the holy river, the hut is also holy. The creator of this sentence is not speaking everything aloud to us, but he just uses this word, a hut on the Ganges. By getting to know the story proper, we know that this hut is pure because it is nearer to the river and the river is holy. So the proximity of the river is that which is suggested, because a person who is born and brought up in India and even abroad also, they know that river Ganga is holy, and it is regarded as a holy river. And so by merely saying a hamlet on the Ganges, the poet is suggesting a thing, and more than that, the holiness that is attributed to the hut because of the proximity to the holy river Ganga. So this aspect is called, or this idea, or this elaboration, or the suppression that is the elaboration that is suppressed into the so many words is what we call as Vyanjana. So this is a very simple example, but at the same time it gives an insight into the use of Vyanjana, suppressed element, and we the readers are given more or the exercise of their intellect, and as such they will be able to enlarge upon that suppressed element or the suggested element, and that gives beauty to the poem. And this is exactly what the artist intended to be the involvement of the reader in the poem, and as such it is done properly. So suggestion is the suppressed element, or it is Vyanjana, and it is done in order to enhance the beauty of a poem. Okay. Then the next part is the elaboration of Vyanjana is that Vyanjana is logotera, which means that it is essentially an artistic process, because only in art you will find the use of Vyanjana. Vyanjana is suggestion in poetry. It is not laugiga. It is not a process of the ordinary life. In ordinary life, if you speak in suggestion, people will say that, people will take time to understand that, and this won't do, because in daily life things are to be moving on the move, and we don't have that much of time to understand what he means by that suppressed element or suppressed sentence. And so we can say that Vyanjana is not used in the ordinary life, so it is not Laugika. On the other hand, Vyanjana is Logotara, because it is an artistic process. So, because it is an artistic process, and because it is not a process of the ordinary life, it is described by the Alangarikas as Logotara. So, why is Vyanjana called as Logotara? It is because of the fact that it is essentially an artistic process, and because it just do not deal with the process of ordinary life, because it is not Lavgiga, and because of these reasons, the Alangarikas, the grammarians, term it as Logotherapy. So, in a way, this kind of an enhancement is given to Vyanjana, and this also tells us how important Vyanjana is in the artistic process, or Vyanjana or or suggestion is the dominant process or the dominant art in the making of a poem, and enhancing the poem and making it acceptable and raising it to the high standards that is indeed what the poet had intended it to be. So here you find that uh, there are so many classifications based on this Vyanjana, and depending on the use of Vyanjana in art, Anandavardhana had classified the poem into, or the poems into, Uttama Kavya, Madhyama Kavya, and Adhama Kavya. So, and it is based on the suggested element, the degree or the amount of suggested element in each poem decides whether it is an Uttama Kavya, Madhyama Kavya, or Adhama Kavya. And Anandavardhana had made this classification. According to him, Uttama Kavya is the one in which the suggested element reigns supreme. The suggested element reigns supreme means in the poem you will find suggested elements dominating. It is not here and there that the poet uses suggested element, but altogether throughout the poem, the suggested element is there, and it is so filled with suggested element that it reigns supreme in the poem. Such a poem we call as Uttama Kavya. the most important or the best type of kavya. What about Madhyama Kavya? In Madhyama Kavya, the suggested element is not raised to the supreme rank but allowed to preserve its minimum degree of agreeableness and beauty and attractiveness. In this sense, which means that the poet may not be that skillful, or maybe the theme just do not expect too much of suggestion. So the suggested element is not supreme in that poem, but it is allowed to preserve its minimum degree of agreeableness and beauty and attractiveness, in the sense that you will find suggested element, and at the same time you will find the other elements also. So altogether it is enjoyable, and you don't need to exercise too much of your intellect, because suggested element is not the supreme, but it is only a minimum degree, and naturally the poem is beautiful, and it is attractive because of that minimum degree of agreeableness, or the suggested element is there to a certain extent, not altogether. So such a poem we call as Madhyama Kavya. Then comes the last part, or the lowest kind, Adhama Kavya. In Adhama Kavya, prominence only to certain attractive features of literary form, and the suggested element is allowed to lie buried. You will find more details in page 52 of your text. That is, only certain attractive features of literary form are given dominance, and there is no suggested element. It is allowed to lie buried. And the perfect example for an Adama Kavya is indeed the rhyme that is there, the nursery rhymes. But at the same time, it has got a meaning of its own. Like, for example, Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. You won't find suggested element there. You will find only the attractive features of the literary form, the rhymes. Jack and Jill, alliteration, rhyme, everything is there. But you won't find the suggested element, because a child is not someone who needs to understand or exercise its intellect. The child is really attracted by the jingles or the sound of the words, and it remains there in the mind of the child. And so you find these nursery rhymes with all the literary forms, the jingles, like the rhymes and the alliteration, and the short words and very short form, and such poems we call as Adhama Kavya, where you don't find the suggested element, but you find it attractive with the other literary forms. So, can we say that it is of an inferior quality? Maybe it is an inferior quality, but at the same time, it has its own use. Like, for example, the nursery rhymes that you have learned helps you to go through the other words or even literature and learn more words, and that remains there in your mind, and so it has got its own purpose. So you can't just condemn it as such, as not belonging to any higher quality. Of course, it is not a higher form, it is just a smaller version, a very short poem, and we call it as a rhyme, nursery rhyme. And as the term suggests, it is full of rhymes and rather than any possible suggested element. So Anandavardhana's classification is very apt in the sense that he gives utmost importance to the suggested element, and the poems which has suggested element reigning supreme, he termed them as Uttama Kavya. And the suggested element is not raised to the supreme rank, but it has got its own minimum degree of agreeableness in certain poems, and adds to the beauty and attractiveness of the poem. Such poems he termed as Madhyama Kavya. And then comes the Adhama Kavya, where prominence is given to literary form, and the suggested element is allowed to lie buried. So you don't find suggested element in Adhama Kavya. you find in Madhyama Kavya a certain degree of suggested element, but in Uttama Kavya you find that it reigns supreme because it is filled with the suggested element. It is the Uttama Kavya, the perfect poem, or in a way the best type of poem. So this classification helps you to understand the supremacy of Vyanjana or suggested element. So under the classification, Uttama Kavya, Madhyama Kavya and Adhama Kavya is based on Vyanjana or the suggested element. And I hope you have understood so much. Again, you find that Andhradana gives a reclassification. That this reclassification is only tentative, that is Uttama Kavya, Madhyama Kavya, and Adhama Kavya. But here he gives a perfect example for an Uttama Kavya. I have given you an example for an Adhama Kavya because this is that you are familiar with. And there is a perfect example for an Uttama Kavya. And he says that this is only a tentative classification. This can be rearranged and re-exhibited in a slightly different fashion. And that is he gives an example about Suvarna Pushpam, and it is there in your text, the complete version. And here, the meaning is this: suggested element reigns supreme in this particular poem. And the poem says that three classes of people are able to gather gold, as one would be able to gather flowers wherever they go. That is, three types of people will be able to gather gold as one would be able to gather flowers wherever they go. Wherever they live, these three types of people will be able to achieve everything. And who are these three types of people? The first one is the brave person. Second one is the scholar. And the third one who knows how to serve one's master. And these ideas are put so beautifully. That is, three classes of people are able to gather gold, as one would be able to gather flowers. And wherever they go, they will be able to gather gold or gather flowers. Just imagine, wherever they go, in whatever be the condition, these three people will be extremely prosperous and successful. This is what the poet means by gathering gold or gathering flowers. So, who are these three types of people? The brave person, the scholar, and also one who knows how to serve one's master. These three classes of people, wherever they go, thrive well, will be prosperous, will prosper, and that is the suggested idea. Hence, this is a perfect example of Uttama Kavya. The poet did not say that they will be able to thrive or prosper, but the poet says that these three people will be able to gather gold or like gathering flowers. And again, because of this hidden or this suppressed element, the beauty of the poem is really enhanced and has got a great moral also. The brave person, the scholar, and one who knows how to serve one's master. So the poet is, in a way, trying to tell us the world truth, and that too in such a suggested way or through Vyanjana. And here, Vyanjana reigns supreme. And this is why this poem is raised to the level of an Uttama Kavya. And then again, let's see what the next one is. And so here, it's about the Anuragavadi Sandhya that is given there. And this is explained in this manner. The translation goes like this. The evening twilight is endowed with raga. Raga means red color. Her lover, the sun, the evening, is now taken as a lady, and her lover, the day, goes before her and is quite close to her. Her love is reciprocated. So the evening twilight is endowed with raga, the red color, that is the day and her lover, her lover is quite nearby, and because of the proximity of the lover, she is blushing with this red color. The meaning here is the relation between Sandhya and Divasa, and that is the suggested idea. So you have so many poems in Malayalam, so many film songs in Malayalam, and the color of on the cheeks of a lady is enhanced when the red color, the blush, is because of the proximity of her lover, and this is taken and used by the poet in order to give the idea that it is the day is ending, and there is that setting and the sun is there. And so, because of this proximity of Sandhya and Divasa, um, there is that blush on her face, and so her love is reciprocated. So, in a way, this beauty of the day and night, or Divasa and Sandhya, evening and the day, is that which is connected here. And this is made possible by the suggested idea. And it is by speaking about Sandhya, Anuragavati Sandhya means Sandhya who is a lover, and it is because of the combination. The evening twilight is endowed with raga, or the red color, because her lover, the day, goes before her and is quite close to her. So, this proximity of the lover has made her blush, and the color of her blushing is raga, the red color. And this is the way the beauty is enhanced, and the poet had used the suggested idea in order to enhance the beauty of the poem. And so he is able to bring about delight to the readers, and art is enhanced by this suggested element. As you all know, Vyanjana works for art, and it is possible in art, and so it is indeed the supreme element, and that which makes a poem really interesting and really good to read, and gives a lot of pleasure to the readers. Again, let's see how he explains it. A work of art, the moment it leaves the artist's hands, is the property of art critics. So, if an author has written a novel, once he finishes writing the novel, he'll think that it is my novel. But once he had finished writing it, the novel goes to the readers and also to the art critics or literary critics. They start reading it and criticizing it, and taking it apart in so many different ways. But the fact is that the writer will not have any say in that matter, because he had already created it, and now he can't bring about any changes there. So here, once the art is finished, it leaves the artist's hands. Suggested element is assigned a subordinate position by the critics. The critics give uh, a subordinate position, not the dominant position, for the suggested element. The artist is forced to present the idea beautifully, but linking it up with some situation. So here, because the art critics give a subordinate position to suggested element, the artist is forced to present the idea beautifully, but at the same time, he should link it up with some situation. For example, the hamlet on the banks of Ganga, or by the river Ganga, and this is made holy because it is part of a poem, and the part of a poem is indeed some situation, and this is why the holiness is attributed to the river, which is situated on the banks of the holy river Ganga. Other than that, he just can't say anything like that, but it should be connected to some situation, and only then the critic will be acknowledging it as a best poem. So, Instead of the suggested element reigning supreme, the critics just give it only a subordinate position because art should be something of a situation, or if it is a poem, there should be a story poem, and there the poet, the artist can use suggested element. And in order to enhance or in order to give beauty to the poem, he can use the suggested element. But just for the sake of using this suggested element throughout is not possible because the critics always criticize them, saying that the most important element is not a suggested element, but it is indeed the poem. And in the poem, the Vyanjana is given a subordinate position by the critics, not by everyone, but by the critics. So critics are of the opinion that the artist must subordinate the suggested element and they should give or they should link it up with some situation. So naturally the poet is forced to abide by those rules. Okay. So here you find that it is in a way the something that we have to understand, and this subordinate position is assigned by the artist, and he is someone who will use it in the proper manner, linking it up with the situation. And so here you find the use and abuse of this Vyanjana, and in the next chapter we'll be dealing more about Alankaras rather than about Vyanjana, because here you find that the suggested element gives beauty to the poem, it is the soul of the poem, but at the same time there are a lot of other things which it really gives the beauty to the poem. And not all poems can be Uttama Kavyas or even Madhyama Kavyas. You have Madhyama Kavyas and even Adama Kavyas also. They have its own use, their own use, and so naturally the poets will have to understand what it is, and naturally they will have to write poems accordingly. Okay, read through these sections one after the other and understand it properly. Write it down in your notebooks and just check the questions at the back of each chapter, at the end of each chapter. Okay, so only then you will be able to understand this properly, and no need to worry about anything. This is exactly what you need to understand. Even though so much explanation is given, you can read through them and keep the note of the most important points. Okay, thank you.